Hi, and welcome to 12 Days of ADHD Productivity. My name is Boothie Algareri. Today, we're going to be talking about building self-trust when coming from a history of stress. Now, I didn't always know I had ADHD, right? I knew I had dyslexia by the end of my degree, which was in biochemistry, so it was really quite intensive for me as it was. But I didn't understand why I was so chaotic, why it seemed like I couldn't get things together in the way that people around me were getting things together. And I was also freelancing as a web designer during my master's. I did 2 masters after my degree, one in computing, one in electronic publishing. And it just felt like I couldn't live up to what I was seeing other people doing. And I think a lot of people who I see who know that they have ADHD have this kind of failure story, this belief in themselves that they really can get things done, to the point where imagining doing anything new is overwhelmingly stressful. And that may not be where you're coming from. But what I've found is that most of us have compartmentalized ideas of what we can and what we can't do. Like, I can work really well on client work, but when it comes to marketing or promotions or, God forbid, sales, that is where I can't do things. Or I can study really well for my degree, but when it comes to sending out job applications, I can't do it. We tend to have ideas and stories of what we can and what we can't do very well. And that is really holding us back. We're not going to grow when we have these failure stories with us. So that is why building this self-trust is going to be so instrumental of doing things in a less stressful manner, especially because part of the way our brains work is that in order to keep us alive, our brains have to run simulations of how much energy we will need for the basic things of our hearts beating, our lungs functioning. It needs to know how many calories we've had. I don't even know how it does this, but it does it. And if we are fighting an infection, it needs to kind of budget that as well. If we have this kind of failure story and this fear of trying new things, or sometimes fear of trying anything, if the failure story is very extreme, then we are sitting down to start something with less energy than a person who, for no fault of for ourselves, that other person isn't going to have this problem. They can actually start much easier and much quicker. So we really want to work on building the self-trust. And the way we build self-trust is that we stop setting ourselves up to fail. And I know that sounds really obvious, right? But I've noticed 2 kinds of ways of tackling our to-do lists or our projects that are basically setting ourselves up to fail. And one is the chaos, the chaos method, the wave of stress. It's very common with freelancers. Some brilliant freelancers as well do this, where they'll talk about, I need to start doing this, I need to start doing this, I need to start doing this. And that wave of procrastination, it's kind of building up off the coast. And you can kind of imagine that this used to be me as well. Then imagine me sitting on the top of it on my little boogie board or surfboard or whatever. Then when it peaks into that moment of hot, I have to do this now. It will not get done unless I do this now. And then you just ride that wave of self-loathing, insomnia, tears, coffee overload to the shores of the deadline. And you get there and you think, I'll never do this again. I have to start getting organized. But also there is this kind of exhilaration because it feels like you've just really achieved something. This method is really, really addictive. And if that is resonating for you in any capacity of your life, then you need to know that it's going to take much more effort. It's not going to feel good or natural to work in a different way, right? But you should do it anyway, because when you get used to that kind of adrenaline, if you're an adrenaline junkie in terms of work, you are not thinking strategically anymore. You're not really seeing the big picture anymore. You're not able to approach your work with a sense of detachment and curiosity. You would need to get the very best results out of it, because adrenaline is a very hyper-focused, myopic state of mind, right? It's just about running to or running away from something. It doesn't allow you to think strategically. That is just the effect it has on your brain over anything that's not an immediate one-time lion chasing you. The second method I've seen that leads to failure is what I call the reach for the stars method, where people just pile up a lot of things on their to-do list, and they'll mark them randomly, assigned to days, like, oh, I'm just gonna pull out 10 things to do this week, which is fine. But do they really need to be assigned for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? Why are you assigning them for those days? Because what happens if you don't get one of those things done? You're setting yourself up to fail, because now you've got 4 things left to do on Tuesday. And then if one of those things on Tuesday isn't done, plus one of the ones from Monday, then you have more things for, Wednesday. So although it feels like at the time, I'm just going to put these down, and if I don't get them done, at least I'll do more than if I didn't put anything down. It's really important to try and build a system where what you see assigned for you to do on that day is actually true. Because your brain isn't stupid. You kind of know when you're bullshitting yourself. You know when it doesn't need to be done, and you start resisting the work. And you have this relationship of distrust with yourself. So set yourself up to win. Give yourself something tiny to do, because it's not about being brag-worthy. It's about really being able to believe that when you see yourself doing something, it's going to get done. It's not even a question you have to doubt anymore. And just think of it this way. This is just like step 1. The other things are going to be bigger and better, but you need to have this foundation in order to be able to do them. The second thing, and this is another way of setting yourself up to fail, is not really understanding the difference between a task and a project. This is much more understandable, and I still struggle with it. I still sometimes put down tasks that are actually projects. A task is something that has no subtasks in it. Okay? It is pick up the phone and answer a call. It doesn't involve looking for the phone number, doesn't involve rehearsing what to say. It is something that is only one action to it. Something like reply to an email, something like shake out the duvet. A project is a bunch of subtasks assigned to it. So the day before yesterday, I assigned myself a task of send email campaign. Of course, that was a mistake. I got it done, but it took much, much longer. And it felt much less satisfying because it took hours to actually finish all the work that was assigned to it. So be very aware of that. And what I want you to do is to start with forgiving yourself for what you didn't already know, and forgive yourself for the stories you have about the different ways you see yourself as productive or unproductive. And then start with just one tiny task that you can do right now. It's okay if you do more things than that one thing, but just make sure that you understand that it's optional and that you're going to continue doing this so that you have this relationship of trust with yourself. And don't assign tasks. I really don't believe in assigning tasks to a particular day unless they need to be done that day. I personally like to keep one epic list of all my tasks and then just pick a few for the week. But I know that my days are actually flexible. So some days are not so productive. Some days are very productive. And I also do something else that allows me to feel okay with not getting those things done per week. And that is that I keep a record of other things that came up and that I did and dealt with that weren't originally assigned to me. Or, I didn't assign them to myself, for example. That's my got done list. And that helps me be more flexible with myself when it comes to reviewing. And you do need to review. You need to do a review at least once a week where you judge your ability to set your tasks against your ability to get them done. And it is not a criticism on whether you didn't get it done, but it does mean you have to assign fewer tasks next time if you didn't get it done, right? Because what we want is for our expectation to match reality. When our expectation matches reality, we get this really, really satisfying energy buzz. And when that happens, you're starting your workday off with so much more positivity. You feel so much better about yourself, and the work just seems to flow. You don't have to be self-loathing and self-blaming to get things done. That is the whole core of what I really want you to begin to understand. You can actually love what you do and feel very, very satisfied with it by starting to do less. You can think better, you can feel more confident to try new things when you really trust yourself. The second thing I want you to do is to start to pay attention to what your productivity / not productivity stories are. Because if you think that, say, well, I can only work when in a group scenario or in an office, it might be that you are one of those people who process things in an auditory fashion. My husband is one of those people. He likes to think aloud. He will talk to himself. He will read things aloud. That is how he thinks things through when he works from home. And that can help you if you're again doing things for clients or doing things in the office, but you want to be able to do things on your own side hustle. This can really help you find that way of moving forwards with less stress. If you're like me, then my way of processing is always visual. So even if I'm just writing a note in my phone or talking something through on Slack or Discord or through text message, that is how I process things. So for me, it doesn't really matter where I am as long as I can write down on something. You may also find that you are just a person who needs to have background noise to feel calm, or that you just like to, see people. But that just doesn't mean that you can't do your own thing or your own side project. It just means that maybe it's better for you to do your side project in something like a cafe or to play some ambient noise in the background. So just look for those hidden insights in what your story about where your competencies versus incompetencies are. Look for those insights there, because it can really help you start your day in a much happier, calmer place, or do your side project or work on yourself in a much more positive state of mind than you would do if you're just doing what you've always done before. And yeah, I think that's it. Except one more tip: if you do want to work from home, if you do want to work on your own project, try and start your day by doing one thing that is actually really pleasurable for you. Even though it's not productive, start your day doing that one thing. If it's just like working out for 10 minutes or going for a walk or playing guitar, whatever it is that is really nice for you, start your day doing that, because it just puts you in such a good mood that the other things seem much easier. And I'm a real big believer in finding the pleasure in the process. When you find the pleasure in the process, the whole process becomes so much more in flow. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or any feedback, or if you think I'm just flat out wrong, you can drop me a comment or reply to me on Instagram or on Twitter. I'm Atomic Butterfly on both of those things. See you next time. Bye.